And with that lovely noise, we're live for Polygon Issuance 39 on December the 19th, 2014. 6 days before Christmas. And almost everybody seems to be missing. Henry's at some game. Mike is sick. His asthma got really nasty on him, so he left. So I brought up Derek, who is sitting in front of houseplants at his home in Cumming, outside of Des Moines. Say hi to all the people that could be watching later on.
Hi.
Yeah, he's like...
Well, you know I'm just a backup, so I didn't really have a lot of time to prepare.
And I'm being interrupted, but that's typical of most stuff. But so I thought, we'll look at like we normally do. We do our current weather. It was warm and foggy and cloudy. Now it's cold and cloudy. We can't get rid of these clouds. I'm sick of clouds.
It was 35 degrees here today.
Yeah, but
nice.
Yeah, but was it cloudy?
Yes, it was. It was cloudy and foggy.
Yeah, aren't you sick of cloudy?
It's kind of old, but at the same time, we have no snow on the ground. And in Wisconsin, where I'm from, there's snow on the ground right now. So even no snow on the ground makes up for the clouds to me.
Yeah, but when I just think this is typical. What I can remember. I always like to do this. I can remember stuff that we would normally see this type stuff in like late February and March when all the snow melts, and then you just get this cloud deck that doesn't go away because all the moisture kind of gets risen up into the atmosphere, and then it just stays cloudy. And that's what it felt like last week until the cold front came through, and now it's cold, but then the sun came out, and then it got cloudy again. It's like, oh, we can't have you have sunshine. We have to have you be cloudy and dreary.
Maybe because all the snow is melting in the northern part of Iowa and Minnesota, and maybe that's why it's cloudy so much and fog. Well, I thought it was kind of funny, though, and I thought this is kind of funny. Kansas City got the last one. They got like 4 inches of snow down there. That's what they get for being so warm all the time and sunny.
Yeah, and it's like Kansas City has more snow than we do. That's sad.
I told a friend of mine from Minnesota, I said, so if you drive down Interstate 35 from Minneapolis, you're in snow cover in Minneapolis, and then you run to southern Minnesota and Iowa, and there is no snow, and then you keep going south and you get Missouri, and snow cover reappears. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, but I think that's going to change next week, unfortunately, because it looks like we're going to get a white Christmas, but then you know how that is. They say, oh, here comes a snowstorm, and then it goes away, or it turns into rain. I know we're supposed to have rain Monday that could be mixed with some snow. And then there's been some talk that there could be a blizzard after that. We're not going to forecast that. I'm not going to go on a limb and say blizzard, but we'll see what happens with that. But otherwise, nothing much happening. Like you said, there's no snow. It's almost Christmas. I mean, we've had brownless Christmases before. But
well, aren't we kind of due for a brown Christmas? Because the last 2 Christmases, according to what I looked at last time on the National Weather Service, have been white. So it seems like it's kind of due for a brown Christmas. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like the probabilities here of having a white Christmas are like 50-50. So most people think, well, we should have a white Christmas every year. Yeah, it's 50-50. Because you never know what you'll get, because technically the average high this time of the year around here is in the lower 30s. So
I contacted the National Weather Service to get an idea of what December is supposed to be like, and he told me that this is from someone from the Johnson office. he must work there because I was having a conversation with him. He said that a lot of Decembers are actually brown up until around the 15th. So usually the first half of the month is brown, and the second half is all bets are off. It could snow at any time.
Yeah. And I mean, you can see snow earlier than that, but it technically melts almost as quick because you can get cold snaps and then it warms right back up to like 50 degrees even in December. We've already had that this month.
Well, even when you look at past snow cover data, and I looked at it really close, I've been analyzing it because I want to know exactly what I can expect here. Every month that I looked at, all the way back to 2000 and 1990, the snow cover melted at least once in most months. No matter what month of winter it was, the snow cover at least melted away once, depending upon what part of Iowa you're in.
Yeah.
But at least one part of the state was totally snowless, one each winter month.
Yeah, and it was typically, if I was to take a guess, the southwestern counties that were typically the ones that would lose their snow the first.
Yeah, usually. Usually it was.
Even the western counties, because they're closer to the Chinook winds from the Rockies.
Yeah, but even in the Des Moines area that I looked at, obviously because I live here, it wasn't consistent. It was always melting off most of the winter months.
You know.
Yeah.
So, but then, like it is right now, there's a little bit of snow south of you, like far southern Iowa had a little bit of snow. I don't know how much of it is still there. And down into Missouri, like you said, around Kansas City. There's nothing here. There's nothing in the northern part of the state. There might be a little in northwest Iowa still. But
that's probably considered a little strange that the entire state doesn't have snow on the ground.
Except the far southern counties that may still have a little bit, but from that last storm. But
yeah, I seen a car coming up 35 from the south that day. It snowed, and it was covered in snow. It looked like maybe about a half inch. I don't know where it came from though, but it had snow on it.
Well, it had to come from Missouri because or the fact that the day it snowed as far north as what, maybe Indianola or Osceola.
I had some light snow that day, but it was weird because it was snowing and it was sunny at the same time, so it didn't accumulate.
Yeah, so you were pretty much at the edge when it was sunny and snowing. That you're like right on the edge.
Yeah, and it was doing that all the way from coming to downtown Des Moines.
And I know too that same day I saw a snow band coming in from the west toward where I live, east of Cedar Rapids. And I'm seeing this snow band coming, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's going to start snowing. I look out the window, it's pure sunny outside. There's almost no clouds. But there's a snow band like 30 miles away, and it's sunny. All you can see off in the distance is this big bank of clouds. And it must have been as soon as those blanket clouds hit you, you started getting snow. Within about 2 hours, that snow band disappeared. It dissipated. And and then the funny thing is that cloud deck moved over, and I think all we had was flurries, if that. So, but that's not what we were going to discuss tonight, is our lack of snow, because we'll probably next week, since we are going to do a show next week, since the show we were going to plan on this week is going to be done next week, since Mike will be available next week, we're going to do a show next week. By then, I'll probably still be complaining that there's still no snow on the ground, or I'll be complaining that, okay, it's after Christmas, I want to get rid of the snow. So anyway, what we were going to discuss tonight now is that there's a lot of places that seemingly sell a lot of plants this time of the year. For example, like Norfolk pines, which are known as little Christmas trees. Well, my parents bought one of these several years ago and then proceeded to kill it. And there's a good reason for it, and Derek can go into this a bit later. You can't grow these trees in most of North America. As far as I know, the only place you can grow them outside is in Hawaii or in Florida. And Derek can get into this with this, and then we'll keep going with other things like his poinsettia. So what do you think about these Norfolk pines that people use for trees? Can you really use them as houseplants, and how long can they last as houseplants?
Hey, Jeff, are
Yes,
you
I.
there?
Yeah.
You're really, really quiet. I'm trying to figure out why. I can't hear you that well.
Oh, great.
It's like so quiet, I can barely hear you. I'm going to try to fix it.
Yeah, all that stuff I talked about, and
I don't know why that is. I can't hear you.
it
Can I, if I leave for a second, can you enter me back in, or is that not going to work?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Thanks.
And that was Derek, and he will. Well, this is a bang up show, folks. So I did all that intro for Norfolk Pines. Now can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Whoa, okay, that's much better. I could not hear you before.
Okay.
Okay, so what were you about? I heard you a little bit of what you said, but it was kind of difficult.
About Norfolk Pines, can you really use them as houseplants after you use them as these miniature Christmas trees, since they sell these at quite a few stores?
Okay, I've actually grown them before, and I've had success with it. They are actually easy to grow as houseplants. Um, you pretty much have to treat them like a regular houseplant, which is not too wet. A lot of people, the most common problem is people overwater. They don't like to water too much. So, yes, they can be long-lived houseplants. I think mine survived about 5 years before, I had to go to college, so I had to leave a lot of my houseplants, or I'll probably still have it. But I've seen people that have had their Norfolk Island pines for 10 years, and they would be as tall as this room that I'm in.
Yeah,
So
but
they,
eventually they grow themselves out of being houseplants.
yeah, I mean, they're a tropical pine tree, and they get very tall, pretty much like pine trees do outside. So, yeah, eventually they're going to outgrow the space, but it takes a really long time for that to happen.
And of course, since it is a tropical plant, you can't grow it here.
Not outside. A lot of people think that all pine trees probably grow in areas that get a lot of snow, but those are tropical pine trees. So anything below 40, they start to get damaged, and anything below 32, they're dead completely.
Yeah.
So, but they are easy. I've had them before, so those are probably the easiest festive holiday plant to take care of because you just buy it and it doesn't have any flowers or anything. So that's the easiest of the holiday plants to keep beautiful during the holidays.
Now, there's the poinsettia that a lot of people buy, and some people, in fact, quite a few people think, okay, they're going to buy it for Christmas, and then a lot of people, or at least some people, discard it because a poinsettia is poisonous in some cases, or in all cases. And you told me and the rest of our group that you were able to rebloom your poinsettia, and is that actually difficult to do in certain conditions?
Okay, so you did say they are poisonous. That's true. And actually, as a note, poinsettias have a milky sap. All plants with a milky white sap are actually more than likely poisonous. So if you ever come across that inside your home or outside and it has a milky uh, sap, it's poisonous and should not be eaten. So yeah, they are poisonous. As far as poinsettias, you can actually get them to survive and rebloom next year. However, I want people to know that they will not look the same as when you bought it at the store. Because when you buy them at the store, they're beautiful and bustling and large leaves and huge flowers. But that only happens in vigorous young plants. As poinsettias age, their flowers naturally get smaller. Plus, the poinsettias that you buy in the store are grown in the greenhouse, and it's a lot less light than inside, so you get the response of smaller flowers on poinsettias that are growing inside. This year was the first year I actually was able to keep my poinsettia all the way through summer and all the way into the fall, and it's still in my room right now. I'll probably get it in a second so I can show you. It rebloomed. It's not difficult. The only thing you have to note is they're photoperiodic plants. So that means that they flower when the nights are the longest, which is why they just happen to flower right around Christmas time, and which is the reason why they're popular for Christmas. So it is possible, but you have to have a room that's dark and uninterrupted darkness at night. So you can't even, it says online, you can't even have car lights shine in your window and hit the plant for a second, because that'll be enough to disrupt the dark period. But sometimes I find that that's over-exaggerated, because I had mine in my bedroom where I turn on the light sometimes right around 10 o'clock at night, and I can tell you that there's definitely.
And now Derek's audio has just disappeared. See, this is what happens. This is what happens when he talks about poinsettias. The poinsettia decided it wanted to get back at Derek for making it bloom. At the rate this is going, Derek, this will be like a 2-hour show with just one answer per hour. Oh yeah, he's yeah, you're giving out your phone number to everybody. So we're gonna see what that was about. He's gonna be back, we think. We're not sure. So, but anyway, I know that a lot of people don't even bother with doing the poinsettias and whatnot. So we'll see that Derek has returned.
I don't know what happened. I wonder what I could do to prevent that from happening again.
Yeah, we need to get you on the computer instead of on the phone, but I don't think you have internet hooked up to your computer, or do you?
Yeah, it is, but I don't have a webcam.
Well, who cares about? Well, get out the poinsettia while we still have your video.
It's right here. I got it during the lull. See it?
And is
Maybe.
the flowers smaller or bigger or the same than they were last year?
Well, they're smaller. The other thing is I noticed that when growing it by myself, it's later. They bloom later, because mine just started in the last 2 weeks. See, here's the flowers. They don't look. I don't think they look too bad.
And the flowers would be the red leaves and the thing in the middle.
Well, yeah, they call them flowers, but these petals that I don't know if you can see it that well, that I'm touching, these are actually called bracts, which means they're not actually petals. The flower is actually right here in the very middle of it. So these are just leaves,
Now
actually.
point at it, because you were kind of not pointing at the center.
Right here. There's another one over here. This one's almost open. So the red parts are actually leaves, and that's why they can last from November to April.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that looks that bad for growing it myself.
Yeah. I mean,
But
it's not as rambunctious as the store-bought things, but that's a second-year plant.
yeah, and see, it's a little more, it's leggier. It's not as pretty, but I still like it. Plus, you get the satisfaction of saying that I grew it myself. So.
And then when it's in its bloom period, that's when you can have it in light.
Yeah, when it's after it's blooming, it doesn't matter.
Are you going to try it again to see if you can get it to grow to a third year?
Yes, I am, because I was actually inspired to grow it and leave it for a year when my grandma, who has a brown thumb, was actually able to get hers to survive, and that's not what inspired me to try it. Hers is 2 years old now.
Okay, so we can try to get this not where it's going to cut out. You can cut your video unless you're going to show something else, and then we can go from there to see if that'll keep the audio going longer. So,
So you want me to take the video out?
yeah, take the video out for the time being.
Okay.
So, so then we have, besides the poinsettias and the Norfolk pines, you have these bulb plants that are
Oh,
sold, like amaryllises that are
yeah,
sold this time of the year. And
yeah.
those are what I would always term, are those in only, or could you actually grow them outside in this area?
The amaryllises are indoor plants only, strictly indoor plants. There is a kind of sort of amaryllis related plant, and that's called naked lilies. They look just like amaryllises. Those can be grown outside, but your standard Christmas amaryllis, those need to be inside. They will not tolerate freezing temperatures.
And I would assume that would be the case for most of this country, though.
Maybe tropical Florida, but see, amaryllises grow in a climate where they don't get a cold dormancy period with lots of snow. They actually just have a dry period. And that's what re-triggers flowering. After it's dry for so many months and it starts to rain again in the climate where it is, and then it flowers. So maybe a climate similar to, closer to Arizona, I guess, but a little more tropical than that. But that would be my best description of the climate.
So I would say maybe a place like Texas, which is
Maybe,
not as tropical as Florida, but it does have some dry periods.
yes, that's what I'm trying to describe it that way. But it could not freeze at night, or maybe some light freezes. I don't really know a lot about exactly the climate where they're from, but that's what I do know about the climate.
So,
But
so we have this idea of all these plants that you can't grow outside. So why are they selling these to these people?
because most of the people want these plants to decorate the inside of their homes for Christmas.
Well, there's a nice short answer. Now, I go back to the poinsettias. You can't grow those outside either, right? Hello? And I think your audio went bad again. Boy, this is a rip-roaring show. Did the audio die again? This is a fun episode, everybody. We're gonna have fun with this. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for more, everybody. This is gonna be the best show ever. Okay, Derek, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I have an idea. This is what I'm going to do. As we're having our conversations, I'm going to, in the background, slowly start setting up my laptop because I just remember it has everything I need, and we can
Yeah.
try to switch it over to that, okay?
Okie dokie.
So we can still talk, but I'm just going to be doing that too at the same time.
So we're gonna watch Derek make a mess. So
I'm going to start by being in this bedroom while I'm getting my
okay,
laptop.
but what I was describing, and I think you heard it, can you actually grow poinsettias outdoors?
They cannot grow outside in a climate like ours, but if I remember right, their native climate is actually Mexico. So they can be grown in a spot where it doesn't freeze during the winter, and it's, again, a climate similar to Texas as long as it doesn't freeze at night.
So I would say lowland Mexico, not like up in the mountains.
You know, yeah, I think probably close, yeah, tropical climate for those, for
So I would
poinsettias.
say like Acapulco, Manzanillo, even Cancun or Cozumel, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
I have heard reports though that that they have grown in Texas. You know, people have planted them in the ground and they've grown there. But you know what poinsettias actually become? They actually become small trees, and they get very bark-like on their trunks. A lot of people don't ever get to see that because they're young plants when we have them.
And so when you get an older plant, it'll just look like a tree, more
Yep.
or less. And you've never witnessed that.
There's a little bit of bark forming on the bottom of this one. You can see it. See how it's not green like the rest?
And
There it
now, is that the original one or is that a different one?
That's the original poinsettia.
Okay.
So amaryllis are probably the easiest plant. Going back to those are probably the easiest one to flower because all you have to do is plant the bulb and it will flower.
And then there's some other ones that I can't remember.
Paper whites.
Yeah, and those are another ones you can't grow outdoors here either.
No, but you can grow their relatives. Do you know what their relatives are?
Probably. Oh gosh, lilies. No.
The relatives of paper whites are daffodils.
Yep.
That's here's growing right here.
So you bought some. So those are actual daffodils then.
These are paper whites.
Okay, those are the ones that you have to grow indoors.
Yeah, they're an indoor daffodil. Again, their climate's like amaryllis. They have a dry season and a wet season, so they don't actually get, these don't have cold winters where they're from. So basically, you buy the bulb, and you plant it, and it grows. Because these I planted probably a week and a half ago, and they've already grown that much. It's very surprising.
And from what I know, when people get these plants around Christmas time or December, they'll bloom sometime. From what I always remember, they always bloom around, say, St. Patrick's Day or sometime in late February to March.
It depends on when you buy them and when they were planted. They usually bloom 6 weeks after they're planted.
Okay.
So you time it like that. Yeah. These are my favorite of all the Christmas bulbs because amaryllises have the ability to reflower. So I can't throw plants away. So if I keep buying amaryllises, I get a huge collection. These do not reflower after they bloom once, so I feel better, discarding these after Christmas.
So yeah, those, and once they bloom, they're done, and then they're useless.
Yeah, these are. Unless you lived in an area where it didn't freeze, you could plant them in the ground.
Doesn't it kind of depress you that or does it depress people that you buy plants that only last like a month or two, and then they're gone?
No, I don't think it does, and you know why that is? People need flowers. People need green. So I think that buying these things, this is the way I look at it. Buying these things, enjoy them inside and let them be beautiful in your home. Just give you a sense of, pride of having them and happiness of them being around your home. And then don't feel bad to discard them because they can be used for compost, so it's not like it's a total waste of time or in money, because you can discard them in city, compost bags, and that way they're getting a re-life and a reuse instead of, throwing them in the garbage where they go to a landfill. Just put them in the compostable garbage, even if you have to wait till next year if your city doesn't do it. That way, it makes me feel better anyway, knowing that they're at least composted and reused in a second life. But I don't feel bad having flowers over the winter because there's such a need. People are connected to flowers, and to have some in the winter is nice. So, answer to that for me is no. I don't feel too bad at it, unless there was something, again, like an amaryllis, which I know has the capability to rebloom. then I have a hard time. But I'm
Now,
okay as long as it doesn't have a chance to reflower. Then I can do it.
now when an amaryllis is going to reflower, it goes like a tulip, I would assume. It just shrivels up and dies, and then all that's left is the bulb again.
Yeah, but with Amaryllis, just so you know, update on the computer, it's installing plugins and it's on 3 or 4, so I'll keep working on that. But Amaryllis they'll have a flower with no leaves on it at all. The flower blooms and it's beautiful for about 2 or 3 weeks. Then the flower dies. You cut the flower stalk off, and then right after the flower, the leaves come out. Those have to stay, just like tulips and daffodils outside. That foliage has to stay on the plant if you want it to reflower next year. So those leaves will be green probably all the way through summer and even into fall. And then you stop watering it. That's what I do. I stop watering it about October, and then the leaves slowly die off. And then eventually I just yank all the leaves off come right around December. And then at that point, you can stick it in a windowsill again, and it will reflower for you.
Which sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. Most homeowners don't want to do that. It's usually people who are only enthused about plants that want to go through that part of it.
Now, like a, gosh, now I just lost track. Like a poinsettia, will an amaryllis bloom similar to the first time you bloom it, or will it be smaller or different in that case?
Amaryllises are where they grow, how they're produced for consumer use is they're grown in a way that all the blooms are cut off every year, so the bulb is getting really, really large, kind of slightly in naturally because all the flowers are being cut off every year before it has a chance to produce and spend energy on making seeds like they would naturally. So, yes, to answer your question is, after it blooms the first year, the flowers will be smaller, not really smaller in size, but there'll probably be less flowers on the cluster. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A flower will be the same size, but the first year you might have 2 stalks with 6 flowers each. The next year you might have 1 stalk with 3 flowers. But then after that, it won't get any less. It's not going to keep getting less as the years go by.
So it'll just get to a minimum that it's only going to, and then it'll just keep doing the same thing roughly.
Yeah, but as far as longevity, I've had my oldest amaryllis for 5 years, and it blooms reliably every year. But I don't let mine bloom at Christmas. I pull mine out in May and stick it outside on the porch, and then it blooms outside.
Which at that time of the year, you can have an amaryllis outside.
Yes. As long as it's above freezing. And well, usually I take all my houseplants outside, and I usually do that around first part to middle of May, as long as there's no frost and nights are in the 40s and 50s. That's when I'll take mine outside.
And then you bring them back in, say, Labor Day.
I always bring my plants in during the first threat of frost. So that this year they were outside way into October. It was really weird.
So, yeah, so now I've lost track. Now there's people, and we'll go into this a little bit, because then there's some people that want to plant like normal outdoor stuff now. For example, with bulbs like tulip bulbs or gladiolas, I think are bulb type plants. Can you actually start those indoors now, but they'll be bloomed before you can even take them indoors? And is that even possible that you can grow that type of stuff that's an outdoor plant indoors?
Like tulips and daffodils outside?
Yeah, can you grow those indoors this time of the year?
Gladiolas, I have never heard of it being done, but if you're lucky to be able to find gladiolas for sale still, you might be able to grow them inside, because I could see how it would work, but it probably wouldn't be that easy, and it's forcing them to bloom out of the regular time, so you're probably going to get a weak bloom anyway, so it's probably not worth trying. Tulips and daffodils, they need a cold winter dormancy period to flower, so the only way you can get those to flower is you got to put them in. I have a whole refrigerator full of them, by the way. You have to pot them up in pots and put them in the refrigerator from now all the way until natural springtime, because now that we're so far, they need a minimum of 12 weeks of cold period. So by what's that going to put you now? Probably somewhere in February by this point, maybe March.
Yeah.
So at this point, if people still had bulbs, and like I just even bought a few more today because there was some still at a local garden center, I put them in pots and then watered them and put them in the refrigerator. And I'm going to force them inside, and then when the ground thaws back out in the spring, I'll plant them straight in the ground and they'll flower outside. But because the ground's thawed throughout a lot of areas, if you had tulips, you could probably still get them in the ground now, and you would probably be okay, but you're risking it, but you're probably going to be okay. Anything else, any other spring bulb, I would not plant out in the ground now. I would put them in pots and force them if people didn't get outside to plant them earlier and still have them.
Because the best time to plant bulbs would be like right before a frost, the first frost of the year.
The best time to plant bulbs in Iowa is right around Halloween.
Yeah.
Mid-October to Halloween.
Which is why the bulbs are usually sold in the fall.
Yep. You can only plant spring bulbs in the fall unless you force them in your refrigerator over the winter time, which I've done multiple times. I plant them with roots and all in the ground in the spring, but that's harder on bulbs. It's easier just to put them in the ground in the fall. I only force them if I happen to find a really good deal on bulbs, or if I didn't remember to plant bulbs. That would be the only time that I would force them in there. Unless you wanted some flowers to be forced inside your house during the winter, because with tulips and daffodils, if you started forcing them around Halloween, you could bring them out into your home in January or February, let's say, after 12 weeks to 15 weeks have gone by of cold treatment in the fridge, and you would get a beautiful pot of hyacinths, tulips, or daffodils inside your house. So you could grow those inside as long as you forced them first.
So then there's, and I'm trying to think, there's the people would grow herbs indoors, and that seems to be like a thing, is growing all these herbs that you can grow indoors during the winter, which you can also have like winter herbs, and then you can grow the same plants outdoors. I mean, not the same plants, but the same plants, separate plants outdoors. Is that even worth doing, those type of things indoors?
Oh, herb? My opinion is if you have an add-on greenhouse on your house, by all means grow herbs inside, or if you have a really big, huge window in the right environment. If you have a standard house, you can probably grow some things like basil, maybe rosemary, and get a few wheat-producing plants, but it's going to be difficult because the conditions inside a home aren't really conducive for a lot of herbs. Speaking of herbs, one common Christmas sold plant is the rosemary Christmas tree, which is created by just trimming a standard rosemary plant into the shape of a pine tree. Those, usually you just enjoy them, use them up, and then those will probably expire. You might be able to get it survive, but those will probably expire naturally for most people.
But you couldn't even regrow that at all.
That is something you might be able to do. Those are kind of new, and I haven't really had a lot of experience with them. So, but I've just heard they don't last that long.
So that's another pretty much useless plant, like a paperweight, or paperwhite, that just comes and goes.
Yes, but see, I consider paperwhites are actually the least expensive Christmas flower. They usually run about $7 or $6 or whatever you find for price. But I really like those. Like I said, those are my favorites. So I wouldn't really say they're useless. There's a use to them, but I also see what you mean too. They have a one-time blooming period, and then they expire.
So then we can discuss what happened last year, and we discussed this when you were back on in the spring. Do you fear that we could have another winter where a lot of plants that are outdoors, like shrubs and whatnot, could have another year of damage from winter burn? Like, and I'll add this too. If we have another winter like that, and except for November, it's been pretty mild, as what I would say, at least here. if we have another winter like last winter, if we have a January, February that's horribly cold, could plants that were damaged by winter burn last year, could they actually survive another winter like that one again?
Okay, so what happened? This is what happened last year, and I just read another article on it, so I'm refreshed. It's now refreshed in my memory. Last year, if you remember, by the way, it was already brutally cold by this point.
Yes. And there went your audio again. Yep, it knew it was time to discuss something good. Then so he'll be back. We think. So stay tuned. Okay, talk more.
I swear I'm still working on the computer. I've got 46%. I wish I would have just used this right away. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, keep going.
Okay. Where did it cut off so I know where I need to start?
Just start over.
Okay. I don't think, basically, I'm hoping it's not going to be like last year because it's already warmer for longer.
Yeah.
But the reason why there was so much damage last year is because the frost depth went really, really far down because it was so cold for so long. We had consecutive cold snaps that would last a really long time.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the normal warm-ups that Iowa usually sees. So the frost just kept getting lower and lower. And for evergreens and a lot of other kind of on the more tender side of plants,
like yews,
take up water in the wintertime, and that's why they turned brown for evergreens. And the sheer coldness and the depth of that frost killed some of the more tender plants.
Yeah.
That's what happened last year. Will they be able to take another year like that? Probably not, because they're already in a weakened state and they only had one summer to recover. So, but the good news is we did get a lot of fall rains in a lot of areas. So I think they'll be okay as long as the frost depth doesn't go that low. Or if it is going to be really, really cold, if we have abundance of snow cover, it'll also be okay.
And that really hurt last year because last year we didn't have a whole heck of a lot of snow, and it got so cold. I mean, we could get back to below zero, and if there's no snow on the ground, that's almost like last winter all over again because the snow helps because it insulates the ground and keeps the temperature at the ground and below it moderated, so you're not having this frost depth going down, and that's why we had so many water main breaks around the state last year as well.
Yeah, that's what happened last year. I don't feel like we're heading toward another incident like that in plants for next year. I don't feel like that we're going to have another repeat because those kind of years are actually pretty rare to have that much plant death. So.
Now, speaking of death, it was announced earlier this week that and we discussed this when you were on back in April or March, April, yeah, about emerald ash borer. And there's been an update. It is now in 18 counties in the state of Iowa now.
I saw that. It completely almost surrounds the Des Moines metropolitan area in counties.
And when I saw a thing that said that they were finding it in rural areas, and there was some ash trees that were infected near Stevens State Forest in southeast Iowa. Is that even more concerning now that we could see forests that could be all the ash trees could be completely destroyed by this borer, and it could happen relatively quickly because this thing, by the sounds of it, may have been there for many years.
Is it concerning? Yeah, it's concerning, but the horticulture community is now knowing about this ash borer for, I don't know how many years old again it is, but I feel like it's somewhere around 10 years, and I don't know if that's for sure, but it's kind of getting up there. It is concerning, but most most people know the fate of ash trees, and that's going to be that they'll probably be non-existent in most communities, either because people don't want to plant them anymore because they now have a sour taste in their mouth after emerald ash borer goes through. They don't want to plant a tree that's going to be susceptible to that, and they're being cut down by communities. It is concerning, but there's nothing we can really do about it. There's nothing out there right now that can actually really make enough of an impact that you won't have to treat the tree every year for the rest of your life. Because as soon as you stop treating those trees with that treatment, it dies. So basically the fate is there'll probably be very little ash trees. And I think that that's going to happen no matter what we try to do. There's going to be very few ash trees left.
So then when we discussed earlier about Norfolk pines being somewhat of a threatened species because of the very small area they can grow in, that ash trees will probably be in that category in our lifetime, if not even before that.
I'm not really sure about that, but I do feel like someday it probably could be threatened. I believe that could be a possibility. But I haven't really heard anything. I read a lot of articles on it, and I haven't read any articles that specifically said it will someday be a threatened species, but I could see it potentially maybe going that way. Maybe, but maybe in the future there'll be some kind of new treatment, or ash trees will develop a little bit of resistance, because there have been studies that have been going on, and some ash trees are actually starting to develop a little bit of resistance to the pest. So who knows what the future holds? But for right now, most of the ash trees that are around right now probably won't be here 20, 30, 50 years down the road, depending upon how fast the emerald ash borer spreads.
And then when you speak of that, connect it to, let's say, elm trees. Some elm trees are still lasting, even though Dutch elm disease has been around for many decades, and there's still some elms outside of Chinese elms, which are not susceptible, but there are some elms that still are surviving, even though there's been Dutch elm disease for years.
That's because those individual trees had a unique genetic makeup of those individual trees, and they are resistant to the fungus that is spread by Dutch elm disease beetles. So that's what you're seeing there, and those trees are actually being propagated and now sold in nurseries. So those are coming back. Those are going to make a comeback.
And so that will likely be what ash trees will be in, say, 20 years.
I can't really comment on how soon that'll happen, but it could happen. That's all I'll say. It's a possibility, because we don't really know right now, because it's kind of a little bit different situation, because that was a fungus spread by a beetle, but emerald ash borer is a larvae that's, eating up the insides of the tree underneath the bark. So we don't really know. There's a big difference there, so we don't really know what the future holds for ash trees, but there's just been a little bit of studies that say some of these ash trees are actually able to survive this attack. So that's what we're seeing. Those are very, very new in the report, so I don't know a lot about it other than that there's a few random cases where the tree is surviving longer than a lot of the other ash trees. That's kind of what it's looking like right now.
Now, I'd ask this, and then we'll do our shout-outs. So, Christmas trees. Is it even appropriate to even go and buy a fresh-cut tree? And what would be a good fresh-cut Christmas tree to buy? What kind of pine tree would be a good fresh-cut Christmas tree if you were to go and get one from any of these Christmas tree lots?
Which type? Is that what you're asking? Which type
which type of pine tree would be best for a Christmas tree that's fresh cut?
The best, most long-lasting Christmas tree are actually Fraser firs, and those are the most common trees that you find. They are worth it. I bought mine on December 1st, and it's still green and not losing any needles. As long as you keep it watered, they won't lose needles. Is it worth it? Yeah, for many reasons. A lot of people enjoy the real Christmas tree. And this is the same for all the holiday plants and, throwing them out and all that. Same with Christmas trees. Yeah, it's worth it to have them in your home. The other thing it does, and it really helps a lot of horticulturists out too, because you're helping our industry when you buy these things. So I would say continue to enjoy them in your home. They are worth it and necessary. They make great Christmas presents too.
And then, of course, when you get rid of them, there's a lot of ways you can get rid of them, and they're mulched.
Yes, some cities might have a mulching program where they mulch Christmas trees. Others compost the Christmas trees. So there's a way for those trees to be reused and used for a good cause rather than just going to landfills.
Yeah.
I don't really know about a lot of the collection sites about that, but again, same for the holiday plants. If you choose to throw it out and buy new next year, compost it instead of throwing it in the trash.
Yeah.
Or at least getting a reuse out of it that way, and it's more green, I guess, to say.
Now, and I was going to say we're going to do our shout-outs, but then before I do that, speak about the prairie remnant. You made a mention on the website, the Iowa Weather Network website, about the prairie remnant that's close to your house, and give us an update as to what's going on with that.
In terms of how it looks, or what's scheduled for that, or what's going to happen to that piece of land?
All of it.
I walk by that prairie every day because I really like it, and it happens to be on the Great Western Trail where I take my daily walks. Right now, it's still spectacular looking because it's all the seed pods and grasses are showing, so it's very neat looking. As far as what's going to happen to that piece of property, they've already cut a no-burn area. Basically, they just mowed down an area all the way around it in a big square, and that piece of land is going to have its first prairie burn in quite a few years, so that it'll kill off some of the young trees that are overtaking it, like I said in my post. So next year, it'll be burned. I will be there to photograph it and talk about it when it's done, when it's in the process of being burned. And then that'll set the stage for a beautiful year in that prairie, because after a burn, they actually tend to be even more beautiful. So I'm looking forward to that.
So we'll do our shout-outs now, and you're aware of this since you've been on this show. I'm going to shout out the meteorologist that got shot by some dimwit in Texas. I don't know. I'll shout him out because he's in the hospital. He's going to be okay, but that just seems kind of stupid. I don't want to discuss that, but I'll shout him out because you shouldn't have a person like that, a meteorologist, is there to forecast the weather, not have to worry about if you're going to get shot at from disgruntled crazy people. So that's mine. So Derek, who do you want to shout out? If a person, a place, a thing, a prairie, the dead animal in my parents' yard?
A place, a thing, well, how about the Des Moines Botanical Center? They have I volunteer there on a 2 day a week basis right now, and they have a lot of things going on right now, a lot of beautiful displays. So I would say maybe go out and check those out. So a lot of the Christmas flowers that we talked about right now, they're in bloom there right now, and they're quite spectacular.
Now, got me on a tangent again. Do they do what you do, as in with poinsettias and whatnot? Do they grow them, and then do they try and grow them again the following year, or do they just replace them?
They replace the poinsettias. Their amaryllises that we talked about, they actually reuse them every year.
So at least they're doing something.
Yes. I'm a supporter of rebuying, though. I like to hear people rebuying and stuff rather than reusing. Only because it puts money into the horticulture industry if people rebuy. So I'm a supporter of both, really.
And in hindsight, with some amaryllises, they always come out with different varieties. It seems like once in a while.
Oh yeah, there's probably hundreds, thousands of colors that I probably don't even know about. So those will continue to come out too.
Okay, so that was our that was his shout out. You have to go to the Botanical Center or go to any Botanical Center because they're bound to have a lot of stuff going on, a lot of the Christmas stuff out there. So.
Yep.
And I'll thank Derek for coming on short notice, but we thought about talking about all this stuff since it is getting to be toward Christmas and whatnot. So Christmas flowers, Christmas plants, Christmas everything. Next week, I might make Derek come next week, but I don't think so because he'll be in Wisconsin. Next Friday will be our top 10 show. Mike has compiled his list. I'm compiling my list. Top 10, a lot of stuff, so prepare for that. January 2nd, supposedly Henry has something that week. We're not sure yet. January 9th, Tony Manolfi from WESH in Orlando. Hurricanes. See, Derek's so excited. On January 16th, Lisa Spencer from WSM.
Well, because you out for a second.
Okay, whatever. Lisa Spencer from WSMV in Nashville will be on January the 16th talking about weather in Nashville, maybe about the flood in 2010 there. So join us then. If you have any buddy you want us to have on the show, email us info@iawx.net. It goes to, well, some of us, who knows. And you can get a hold of me on Twitter at IowaWX. Derek, how can people get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you?
I have an Iowa Weather Network email, but to be honest, as sad as it is, I don't remember off the top of my head. But they can always comment on my posts and get a hold of me that way.
Yeah, just get a hold of him, or you can go to his email, the Yahoo email, or is it Gmail? I don't remember.
Well, I can give that out. That's hostalover360@yahoo.com.
Yeah, that's how you can get a hold of him, and he'll email you right back, and he'll give you pointers.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, and if you want him to take or come to your house and get rid of dead animals, sorry, he doesn't do that. But he'll plant flowers where the dead animals are.
Oh, gee.
And he'll put up a burial sign saying "Rest in peace, dead animal."
All right, I can go with that. I just got to show you something. Look, that whole time I tried to get that working, and it's still downloading.
Yeah, that tells you the Toshiba is slow.
Yeah, it is.
My father's Toshiba laptop is slow too, but.
Oh, the kitty came up to say hi.
Is the kitty going to tell us about the weather? So.
I guess not.
I guess not. So thanks
fine.
everybody for being on or watching this week. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, God bless.